In the red clay heart of Kumasi, where the earth bled ochre and the trees whispered in the twilight, there lived a woman who wore her white coat like ancestral armor. Her name was Dr. Ama Bediako, a healer born of a long line of women who whispered to herbs and danced with the rhythm of the sick. But unlike her grandmothers who healed with cowries and neem leaves, Ama wore latex gloves, held stethoscopes like spears, and wielded knowledge gleaned from medical textbooks heavier than the stones used to grind yam. Her soul, though, was still tethered to her people, to the drumbeats, to the stories carried in the wind. Ama was respected. Not just because she was brilliant, because brilliance in Kumasi's teaching hospital was as common as market gossip, but because she was kind. She spoke to patients as if they were her kin, with voice soft like baobab fruit, and hands that carried warmth like midday sun. She worked in the internal medicine ward, a space where the sick came in whispering prayers, where some left dancing and others left silent, covered with sheets. One morning, when the sky outside cracked with the voice of thunder, and the nurses muttered about the gods being angry again, a man was wheeled into her ward. He had the kind of presence that stole silence from rooms. Even unconscious, even with tubes sliding into his nostrils like ghostly snakes, he looked like he had known the world and it had known him. His name, the file read, was Kwame Boateng, a journalist who had traveled far from the gold streets of Accra to the war-hardened roads of Sudan and Congo. He had collapsed at the Kotoka airport on arrival, and by the time he was brought to Kumasi, malaria and pneumonia had joined hands inside him, dancing a dangerous dance. Ama had seen many patients, but something about Kwame's face tugged at her memory, like a forgotten melody. It was the scar near his left brow, faint but shaped like a crescent moon. She had known a boy like that once in school who used to climb mango trees barefoot and read books under them. A rebel soul. But she shook it off. It could not be him. For days he hovered between sleep and silence. Ama checked on him more than necessary. She told herself it was medical diligence. But even she began to question it when she found herself sitting by his bedside after her shift ended, reading aloud from her favorite novels, or humming lullabies her mother used to sing when fever gripped her as a child. She even brought in a small clay pot of jollof rice once and laughed at herself as she left it uneaten beside his untouched tray. He was not conscious, he would not know, but the spirits know, and sometimes they nudge awake what man cannot. It was on a Tuesday evening, the kind when dusk comes with gold smeared across the sky, that Kwame opened his eyes, slowly, like the sun rising behind thick Harmattan fog. Ama was not in the room, but a nurse came running, breathless, saying the journalist was awake and had asked for her by name. Her heart, a well-trained organ, betrayed her then. It skipped when she entered the room. He was staring out the window, his chest rising and falling gently, rhythm returning to his body. He turned when he heard her steps, and for a long second they just looked at each other. Recognition blinked in his eyes, and then, softly, he said, "Ama Bediako, from the mango trees of Adum." Her knees nearly gave in. It was him. Kwame, the boy who had once read Chinua Achebe and Amu Jalito under mango trees, who had stolen her pencil in class only to return it carved with the words, "You will change the world." They laughed. Not loud, but deep. The kind of laugh that remembers the path you've walked, the rivers you've crossed. She sat beside him, and they spoke in the quiet rhythm of those who have seen life's teeth and survived its bite. They talked of where they had been, of the stories they had lived. He told her about bombs falling in Khartoum, of a child soldier who shared his last piece of dried meat with him. She told him about mothers in labor screaming for ancestors and babies born with fists already clenched in the days that followed. Healing came like a slow dance. Kwame grew stronger, and Ama found herself unraveling in ways she had not allowed in years. Her heart, disciplined and locked behind logic and science, began to beat with the wild rhythm of old folk tales. She saw him not just as a patient, but as a mirror to her own forgotten fire. They did not speak of love. Not at first. It was taboo in the hospital corridors where whispers traveled faster than stretchers. But everyone saw. How Ama lingered a moment longer at his bed, how Kwame's smile bloomed wider when she entered. The nurses giggled behind charts, saying, "The doctor's heart has found its patient." Ama tried to fight it. She read ethics manuals at night. She reminded herself of lines not to cross. But how do you draw a line through a heart that has known someone since childhood? How do you deny the ache that rises not in lust, but in memory and shared breath? Kwame was discharged after 3 weeks. The ward felt emptier, like a drum with its skin removed. He left a note on her desk, no grand confessions, just a folded page with the words, "Some journeys don't end at the hospital gate." She did not reply. Not immediately. Days passed, then weeks. But love, like African rain, does not always fall when you expect. Sometimes it gathers slowly, then drenches all at once. One Saturday, while the markets in Kajisha buzzed and the scent of roasted plantain filled the air, Ama boarded a bus and went to Accra. She had taken leave, told no one. Her spirit knew where it needed to go. She found Kwame in a small flat near Labadi Beach where typewriters competed with dusty books, and windows were always open to let in see stories. He looked surprised when she knocked, but not shocked. They did not speak much. He stepped aside. She walked in. And when their lips met, it was not like the beginning of something new. It was like a return. Like finding a song you used to know, sung in the same key with a voice you never forgot. They spent that weekend not in frenzy, but in slow reconnection. Cooking together, laughing until tears came, lying in bed and sharing scars. He told her of the night he thought he would die and how her voice, though he couldn't see her, kept him alive. She told him how she had once considered leaving medicine, how empty it felt, until he came. They kept their love hidden at first, not out of shame, but out of protection. They were both public people. The world can be cruel to love that blooms in unconventional soil, but love is like fire, it finds a way to spread. In time, they grew bold. Ama transferred to a research position in Accra, where she would teach and work in a clinic near the university. They lived together, not married, not caged, but choosing each other every day. Kwame wrote essays about healing and war, and sometimes mentioned a doctor who saved more than his life. The world noticed. Their story, once quiet, became loud. First it was local papers, doctor and journalist reunite after years apart. Then it spread. Online platforms picked it up. African love story defies medical boundaries. In America and Europe, it went viral. Perhaps because the world, jaded by quick lust and fleeting affairs, saw something rare in them: love with roots. Love that healed. Love that did not apologize. Talk shows wanted interviews. Hollywood called, but they remained grounded. They continued to live near the sea, wake early, drink hibiscus tea, and walk barefoot when the moon was full. And in the quiet of their home, sometimes Ama would still wear her white coat. Not for duty, but for memory. Kwame would look at her, his eyes soft, and say, "You were always my healer." And she would smile, brush his hair from his brow, and whisper, "And you were always my reason." Thus, the doctor who once fought to save lives found her own life saved, not by medicine, not by science, but by the ancient, stubborn thing called love. A love that crossed hospital beds and childhood mango trees. A love that made the world stop scrolling for a moment and believe again. Because in the end, whether in Kumasi or Kentucky, Paris or Port Harcourt, what people crave most is not just a story, but a story that feels like home. And Ama and Kwame gave them exactly that.